tell you a quick story here. During the Hurricane Beryl, right, our house got crushed. So we moved to another house. We moved to a place we were renting. It was a bit more money per month, but it was like literally twice the house. So in fact, it doubled the amount of square footage. Like, I mean, it's just this sort of big cavernous mansion that I'm in right now because I don't have enough stuff to fill it, actually. So while we were looking for a property to build and do something on it, I finally find all this. It just kind of, the planets align and go through all this. And we're like, okay, well, maybe we can rent a house, since it was a short term anyway, maybe we can rent a house that's nearby, where we're building, so it'll be a shorter commute. Fair enough, right? So I talk with the agent, and we go in and we look at this house. It's a new construction house, so it's never been lived in. It was originally built in a neighborhood where it was supposed to be houses for sale to people, but nobody can afford these houses anymore. So they have flipped them all into these rentals, right? And I want to explain for people who don't understand this, why they do this. Builders are building these houses that they then cannot sell. The market is number one, it is saturated, right? There is actually a housing surplus, not a shortage. And for those of you who don't believe me, let the prices start coming down and you'll find out that that's what ends up happening. Bankers, boomers, rent seekers, slumlords, etc., they can't let prices of houses come down. They can't allow that, because then their balance sheets will go negative. So remember, banks have lent out all this money, these ridiculous prices on real estate at the peak of these markets. So if the comparable values, what are called comparable or comp values, when those values start coming down, that's what real estate appraisers use to justify the next set of ridiculous loans. And I'm not saying real estate appraisers are crooked, but I mean, they have to kind of justify all this stuff. So point being, they have to appraise these houses based on comparable values. And if comp values start declining because, well, let's say a builder built a house and they're trying to sell it for $300,000. It's a so-called starter home for $300,000. And it's not really a starter home in the way that maybe a Gen Xer or even an older millennial might think of, where it's like, oh, it's like a normal house. No. This is like 1,200 square feet on a postage stamp lot with no backyard. Right? I mean, like with almost no backyard at all, and an HOA up your ass about absolutely everything. That's most people don't want to live like that, because it's like, dude, it is not comfortable, And even if it is a new house, the new construction is complete garbage, and we've all seen the videos. Scroll TikTok long enough, and you'll see it. You'll see all the home inspectors that are going, "What the hell is with all of this?" Yeah, that's these houses. So they can't sell them for $300,000, and maybe it cost them $225,000 to build it, let's say. They can't lower the prices anymore. They have to turn some kind of profit, or at least that's what they think. They think that they're entitled to a profit. They're not, but they think that. I mean, and I say this as a businessman. You're entitled to earn a profit by providing a better product at a better price to the market that can actually afford it. Then you're rewarded with a profit. You are not entitled to a profit. This is. I say this to make that very clear to any of my capitalist followers. Right? Because that would be actual capitalism. That would be actual free market functioning properly. Would be you losing money because you overspent. Because you overbuilt, you overspent, you overbought, you overpaid. You agreed to all these ridiculous terms and conditions for all your loans. You should now be going broke. That is an actual free market, not this nonsense here. Well, these houses get flipped into a rental situation, figuring that, okay, well, we can just rent them out because we can't really sell them. So they turn them into rental properties, and then they want these ridiculous rents. And I've been over the rent thing here on numerous occasions. The median household income, and by the way, that is gross income, which means it's a fantasy. Because for anybody who understands what net and gross means, gross just means like in a fantasy world where you keep all your money. That's not true. The government steals, between 20 and 25, maybe upwards of 30% from you. That's just the obvious taxation. That's not including the rest of the taxation. That's just the obvious taxation that's right off the top that your employers steal from you, which is, by the way, why they want mega companies, not small businesses. Small businesses will tell the government to get fucked. Big businesses can't do that because they rely on government to keep their failed zombie companies around. This is the truth. And I don't think there's going to be too many people out there that will actually tell you this way, coming from the perspective of someone who actually has to compete in this bullshit every day. Every day I have to compete in this stuff. And every day I watch more and more competitors getting subsidized. Yeah, it's getting a little annoying. So they go and they try to rent these things for $1,800 a month, which is roughly, figure, that's, I call it like 22,000 bucks a year for a rental. Well, how are people supposed to actually save money on that? Remember that, and by the way, keep in mind, the median income. That means that there are many people out there who don't earn the median income, because medians, you remove your extreme highs, your extreme lows, and you kind of figure out it's rough like this. A lot of people don't make that still, right? There's still people that are under that income that don't generate $80,000 a year of gross income. Those are the people that you're more likely to be renting to, and you're trying to squeeze them out for $1,800, $2,000 a month for these houses. And of course, these houses are sitting because nobody can really afford the rents on them either. So not only can they not afford to purchase the houses, they really can't afford to rent the houses unless they get roommates and so forth. And by the way, like I said, just keep this in mind. This house, the bedrooms were like 9.5 feet by 9.5 feet. That was considered a bedroom. My closet is larger than that. So in this place, I mean, it's like, come on, that's ridiculous. So yeah, we're not talking about luxury real estate. We're not talking about that. We're talking about just average. The averages are getting smaller. So, because in real estate, you can't really, so you know how you go to Burger Douche and you buy a burger, and the burger is getting like, first of all, the meat is like questionable as to what's in it. You kind of don't want to ask, because there, could be human in it for all. Well, actually, I mean, there's studies now that are saying like, but we won't talk about that. So Soylent Burger, you order your Soylent Burger and you have no idea how much is it. It's just, the product just gets progressively worse and worse and worse, which is why, again, if you talk to your Gen Xers and your older millennials, they will tell you the same thing. Food doesn't taste the same now. It's off. The food, the taste is off. It isn't right. Your taste receptors are very sensitive, as are most people's sense of smell. Assuming you haven't had any kinds of issues with your sense, everything is off. Like, yeah, and so with real estate, you can't really shrink the product. Kinda, you can't really shrink the price. So you have to just make the product garbage, which is why they're built by the cheapest labor the Home Depot parking lot has to offer. This is why you see these guys that are like, they go up and they look at the rafters and there's like 75 nails in one board. Like, this is why you see this kind of stuff. Because of that. And the houses are getting progressively smaller. I know that they tried to pitch that tiny house thing. And sure, I mean, not everybody, especially if you want to be, the tiny house thing, where that came about originally was people who wanted to live in nature. So they're like, I don't really need a big house, but I want 5 acres, so I can be a part of the trees and so forth. And now it's turned into, the so-called tiny house community. We used to call those mobile home parks. We used to call those trailer parks. I'm not picking on anybody at all. Don't misunderstand. I'm pointing out that that's the problem, is that you have to keep progressively taking a lifestyle cut, and no one else does. This is another challenge, and it's worthy of, and I've talked about it on many occasions, worthy of its own video. But if you notice that none of the billionaires are ever taking any kind of haircut, nobody's selling anything at a loss on their end. They're just making you eat it through inflation, right? Because all inflation is them printing money, it's them printing dollars. That is all inflation is. I understand price inflation. I get all that. Like, no, it's corporate greed. Like, dude, no, stop. That comes after. That is secondary to money printing. And I've tried to explain pocket inflation. I'm convinced I don't possess the vocabulary, apparently, to explain it to people, because I don't think anybody really understands it. But it's where you just keep bailing out the people you want to bail out, and you let everybody else eat all that inflation. And that's where we are right now. So, hope that makes sense.